And former Gateway Church pastor Robert Morris is out of jail this morning. He just finished serving 6 months behind bars. That was after pleading guilty to child sex abuse charges.
And you tonight, the founder of North Texas-based Daystar television network has died. The network shared on social media that Joni Lamb passed away this morning.
So you may remember back in October when he was arrested, Andrea Lucia was there to break news of his plea deal.
May 18th, 2026, South Lake, Texas. Gateway Church. A funeral. A convicted child molester's church. Joni Lamb co-founded Daystar Television Network, one of the largest Christian TV networks in the world. Millions watched her. When she died on May 7th, 2026, her family planned a public memorial. They needed a large venue. They chose Gateway Church. Gateway Church was founded by Robert Morris. In 2025, Morris pleaded guilty to 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child. The victim was 12 years old when the abuse began. He was 22. Morris served 6 months in jail. He was released on Easter weekend of 2026. He is now a registered. And 7 weeks after his release, Joni Lamb's funeral was held at his church. Coincidence or pattern? Let's find out. Before we talk about the funeral, we need to answer one question. What did Joni Lamb's family know about Gateway Church before they chose it? The answer is almost everything. Daystar Television Network is not a small operation. It reaches over 100 countries. It has employees, lawyers, and researchers. The Lamb family is connected to every major Christian leader in America. They knew about Robert Morris. They knew about the 2007 lawsuit draft. They knew about the 2011 confession that was never read. In fact, Daystar pulled Robert Morris's programming from its network in June 2024. That was right after Cindy Clemishere went public. So they knew enough to remove him from their channel. But when it came time to choose a funeral venue, they still picked Gateway. Here is where it gets worse. Joni Lamb's own son, Jonathan Lamb, publicly accused her mother of covering up child sexual abuse inside their own family. He said a relative named Pete abused his 5-year-old daughter. He said his parents tried to hide it. Jonathan claims he was fired from his VP job at Daystar because he refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement about the abuse. The Colleyville Police Department investigated for 18 months. The case closed in 2025 with no charges, but the accusation remains public. So Joni Lamb knew what it was like to be accused of covering up abuse. Her family knew what that felt like, and they still chose Gateway. Let me give you the first reason this funeral should never have happened at Gateway. Robert Morris is not an accused man. He's a convicted man. In October 2025, he stood in an Oklahoma courtroom and pleaded guilty to 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a child. Not 1 count, 5. The judge sentenced him to 6 months in the Osage County Jail, not prison, jail. There is a difference. Jail is for shorter sentences. He served his time and walked out, but that is not the end of his punishment. Morris is now on the sex offender registry for life. He cannot live near schools. He cannot be alone with children. He must report his address to police wherever he goes. He also paid $270,000 in restitution to Cindy Clemishere. Let me say that again. A convicted child sex offender paid $270,000 to his victim, and then 7 weeks later, his church hosted a nationally broadcast funeral for a Christian celebrity. Think about what that says to survivors of abuse. Imagine you were hurt by a pastor when you were a child. Imagine you finally got justice. Imagine your abuser went to jail. And then imagine watching a major Christian figure's funeral being held in his church. What message does that send? It says, we remember our leaders. We honor our leaders. We do not remember or honor you. Cindy Clemishire is still alive. She is in her 50s now. She watched this happen, and no one from Gateway Church has ever publicly apologized to her. Here is the second reason, and this one is hard to defend. Gateway Church elders knew about Robert Morris's abuse of a 12-year-old girl in 2007. That is 17 years before the public found out. Let me give you the evidence. Court filings from Morris's own lawyers confirm that Gateway received a draft lawsuit from Cindy Clemishire's lawyer in 2007. That lawyer is now the Attorney General of Oklahoma. His name is Gentner Drummond. The elders discussed the abuse in a board meeting. Former elder Tom Lane confirmed this publicly. He said the board talked about past events involving Morris and a young girl. But they did nothing. They did not tell the congregation. They did not report Morris to police. They did not remove him from leadership. They kept him as their pastor for another 17 years. Then, after the scandal broke, Gateway hired a law firm called Haynes Boone to investigate. The law firm found that all but 3 elders either knew about the abuse or failed to ask questions when they heard about it. The church's own elder board chair, Traw Wilbanks, admitted it was fundamentally wrong. Those are his words, fundamentally wrong. But here's the problem. If it was fundamentally wrong, why was Gateway Church still treated as a legitimate venue for a Christian funeral? Why was it still considered acceptable? Because in the world of celebrity Christianity, consequences do not last. Churches change their statements. They remove a few leaders, they say they are sorry, and then they go back to business as usual. Hosting Joni Lamb's funeral was business as usual. Third reason, and this one shows you exactly how Gateway Church operates. In December 2011, Robert Morris wrote a confession. He wanted to read it to his congregation. Here is what he planned to say, according to court documents. In my early 20s, I was traveling and speaking in churches. I was staying in a home. Their daughter came and got in bed with me. There was kissing and petting. I have been told it was about 2 weeks before her 13th birthday. Although I knew she was underage, I was shocked to hear this because she appeared much older. My behavior was completely inexcusable, and I am 100% at fault. Read that carefully. He says I have been told she was almost 13, but he also says I knew she was underage. He knew, and yet he never read that confession to his church. Why? His lawyers told him not to. Gateway Church's legal counsel advised him to stay silent. They were worried about lawsuits. They were worried about reputation. They were not worried about Cindy. So, the confession sat in a drawer for 13 more years. Morris preached at Gateway. Thousands of people tithed. Thousands of people volunteered. Thousands of people had no idea what their pastor had done. When the truth finally came out in 2024, Morris did not read that 2011 confession. He gave a shorter, vaguer statement. He called it an inappropriate relationship with a young lady. He never said 12 years old until the court filings forced him to. That is not repentance. That is damage control. And that church hosted a funeral. Fourth reason, and this one might surprise you. After Robert Morris resigned in disgrace, he did not walk away quietly. He demanded money, a lot of money. According to court filings, Morris claimed Gateway Church leaders had promised him retirement benefits. How much? $800,000 per year until he turned 70, then $600,000 per year for the rest of his life, for him and his wife, Debbie. That's millions of dollars. And Gateway Church fought over it in court. Let that sink in. A church that claims to stand for holiness and accountability was legally fighting over whether to pay a convicted child sex offender millions of dollars. The case was filed in Tarrant County, Texas. Morris's attorneys argued that the church owed him the money. Gateway Church argued back. They only settled the case in May 2026. That is the same month Joni Lamb died, the same month her funeral was announced. The case did not end because Gateway took a moral stand. It ended because they agreed to arbitration. That means a private judge will decide. The public may never know how much money Morris actually gets. So here is what Gateway Church has done since the scandal broke. 1. They protected Morris for 17 years. 2. They buried his confession. 3. They fought to pay him millions. 4. They hosted a major funeral. But they have not publicly apologized to Cindy Clemishire. Not once. 5th reason, and this one connects directly to Joni Lamb. We mentioned this earlier, but let me give you the full details now. Jonathan Lamb is Joni's son. He worked as vice president of Daystar television network. He was supposed to take over after his father, Marcus, died, but that changed. In 2024, Jonathan and his wife Susie made a serious accusation. They said a male family member, referred to only as Pete, sexually abused their 5-year-old daughter. They said Joni and her late husband Marcus tried to cover it up. Jonathan claims he was fired from Daystar because he refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement about the abuse. He says his father sent an email changing the succession plan. Marcus died 3 months later. Joni took control of Daystar instead of Jonathan. Joni Lamb dismissed the accusations. She said Jonathan was fired because of a 15-month performance review. She said he refused to follow a performance improvement plan. The Colleyville Police Department investigated the abuse claim for 18 months. In 2025, they closed the case. No charges were filed against anyone. But here is what matters for this video. Whether the accusations are true or not, the public record shows that Joni Lamb's own son accused her of covering up child sexual abuse. Her family lived through that scandal. They knew how painful it was. And then they chose to hold her funeral at a church that covered up child sexual abuse for 17 years. That is not a coincidence. That is a choice that shows more loyalty to Christian celebrity culture than to child protection. 6th reason, the timing. Robert Morris was released from jail on March 30th or 31st, 2026. Multiple news outlets reported it as Easter weekend. Think about the symbolism. Easter is the most important holiday on the Christian calendar. It represents new life, forgiveness, and redemption. And Morris walked out of jail that weekend. Less than 6 weeks later, on May 7th, 2026, Joni Lamb died. Less than 2 weeks after that, on May 18th, 2026, her funeral was held at Gateway Church. So here's the timeline. Morris gets out of jail. Easter weekend. 7 weeks pass. Joni Lamb's funeral at his church. If you are Cindy Clemishire, what do you think when you see that? You think he's free. He's not hiding in shame. His church is still hosting major events. Christian celebrities are still using his building. Nothing really changed. And you'd be right, because the message sent by that funeral was clear. Robert Morris is still part of the family. Gateway Church is still part of the family. We do not exile our own. We forgive our own. We honor our own. But who is our own? Cindy Clemishire was never part of that family. She was a 12-year-old girl in a home where she should have been safe. She wasn't protected by Gateway Church. She wasn't protected by the evangelical celebrity machine.